hey, your government's horrible and is in bed with Nazis and doesn't and persecutes journalists. No kidding? No kidding?
Our message is this: journalism is not a crime. Evan and Austin should be released immediately, along with every other American held hostage or wrongfully detained abroad.
American.
It's weird that they won't mention Gonzalo Lira. Isn't it weird? First of all, he's doing that as he's trying to kill Julian Assange, and they tortured Chelsea Manning, and they also Edward Snowden is exiled to Russia, right? So that's and all those assholes in the Washington press corps, they all applaud him when he says that. As we know that the United States and the West persecutes journalists who tell the truth, especially about war. Zelensky nationalizes TV news and restricts opposition parties. So they're all full of shit. 100%. 100%. They're like what they say Putin is, that's what Joe Biden is. When you hear someone say Putin is a gangster or a thug, that's because they don't want to say Joe Biden is a gangster or a thug, because that's what Joe Biden is. Father of Gonzalo Lira, American jailed in Ukraine, speaks out against political imprisonment. So there is a real journalist being imprisoned in Ukraine for doing journalism. When U.S. media have demonstrated any interest in the arrest of American citizen Gonzalo Lira, it has been primarily to celebrate his prosecution on the grounds that he has been shilling for Putin. The U.S. State Department, meanwhile, refuses to answer questions about the disappearance of an American at the hands of a government substantially funded by Washington. And here's a State Department stooge. He's going to be asked about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Leo Cosgrove with Epic Times. So this was a couple weeks ago, but I haven't seen an official statement on it. A U.S. citizen who was residing in Ukraine has been arrested, and that he was a California-born man. He was in the past like a Business Insider contributor, and he had a YouTube channel. He was an outspoken critic of Zelensky's regime. The Ukrainian SBU released a press release saying he was arrested for justifying Putin's invasion. So ultimately, it added up to speech. And I spoke with Congressman Ted Lieu, Democrat, and he said he urges the State Department to engage its authorities to, work out some sort of negotiation to get him released. So are you guys aware of this? How do we feel about our allies, detaining U.S. citizens for speech abroad?
I will say in general that we're aware of the report. We obviously support the exercise of freedom of speech anywhere in the world, and I'll leave it at that.
That's it.
You guys aren't working to get him released?
I'm going to leave my comments
where
I just left them. Okay.
Yeah, there's a guy.
He smirked about it.
Yeah, he smirked. I'm going to leave it there. Does that not look like a robot sent to you by Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates? Does that not look like a robot sent to you by the military-industrial complex to lie to you? Because that's what it is. The Gray Zone spoke to Lira's father, an 80-year-old Gonzalo Lira Sr., about his son's arrest. I can only say that this episode has marked my life because it is a living slow death for my son. He fretted that the Ukrainian government was preparing a kangaroo court for his son and lamented that it could lock him up for over a decade for his political speech. Lira is an American and Chilean citizen who has been living in Kharkiv, Ukraine. Is that how you say it? Kharkov? I don't know, however you say it. Ukraine for several years. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Lira earned internet notoriety as a war blogger. His analysis of the Russian military operation and harsh criticism of the Ukrainian government from within Ukrainian territory instantly transformed him into a top target of Kiev's often rabid band of online supporters. On May 1st, Ukrainian state security agents arrested Lira for the second time in just over a year. The first time he was jailed, he emerged after several days announcing his freedom to the public through social media accounts. This time, however, Ukrainian authorities charged him with the alleged crime of justifying Russia's armed aggression and disseminating fakes about the war in Ukraine. If convicted of these crimes, he faces 13 years in prison. Lira's arrest was announced alongside the detention of 10 other so-called internet agitators living in Ukraine. So there's no bigger enemy of free speech than Ukraine and Zelensky and Joe Biden. Just so you know. Okay. The blog, not Putin, The blogger also denied the facts of Russian missile strikes on Ukrainian cities and mass murders of civilians by Russists. The SBU said in an official statement, likely referring to disputed narratives around the massacre in Bucha in March of 22. That was a psyop, and we showed you that that was a psyop in real time. We debunked it here at the show, and Lira was telling you the truth about it too. Now, people called us Putin apologists for that, and we were spreading law. Of course, we were right. And of course, whatever the corporate media is telling you is happening, the exact opposite is happening, and they're lying. And that was the case. Lira challenged the Ukrainian government's version of events in both instances. While both Chile and the United States have freedom of expression enshrined in their constitutions, neither government has issued a statement on the arrest of Lira. Isn't that something? Who's corrupt? Who is actually corrupt? Russia? Or is it us? It's us. Turns out it's us. Meanwhile, the State Department has refused to publicly discuss the U.S. citizens' arrest by governments whose employees are subsidized by U.S. taxpayers. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, that was that jagoff I showed you, refused to answer a question by reporter Liam Cosgrove on whether the U.S. was working for Lira's release. Lira Sr. told the Gray Zone that he worried his son was being tortured and could not sleep normally. I can only say that this episode has marked my life because it is a living, slow death of a son. He doubts his son will ever be released. At present, they are preparing a kangaroo court. Zelensky and his thugs do not fight for democracy and freedom. They fight to keep themselves in power with the blessings of Biden. For the U.S. government, it would only take a phone call to Zelensky to free Gonzalo. The world knows that Zelensky is a U.S. puppet, but he does not respect the right of an American citizen to exercise his freedom of speech. So keep voting for Biden. You got to vote for Biden because he's not as bad as Trump. You got to keep voting for Biden. He's not as bad as Trump. You got to vote for the devil instead of the Satan. The devil's a little not as bad as Satan.
Be a grown up.
Be a grown up and vote for your oppressors. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Baltimore, San Francisco, Huntington Beach, Rosemont, and Chicago, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Connecticut, and more, and St. Louis. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all our tickets for all our shows.